To the Big East we go for this conference tournament prediction brought to you by the Full Court Trap podcast. Sully, we've already got our ACC one in the books. We had a lot of good discussion over there. Go check that out if you haven't already. But it's time to get into it. Dan Hurley's league that he's ruled over the last 2 years, it may not be his throne anymore. St. John's, Marquette, they're all looking primed for possibly taking over. Creighton as well. Going to be an entertaining tournament, and we're here to break down all the possible storylines and what we think the matchups are going to ultimately look like. So let's go ahead and get into the bracket here. All right, there it is, Sully. The Big East bracket, Madison Square Garden, New York City, kicking off on Wednesday. First round matchup to kick it all off is going to be Butler versus Providence. A lot of Peacock games here, Sully. We were talking about that before we started recording. Peacock must have struck a nice deal with the Big East there. They got about half the games.
Yeah, and I hate it too. I'm going to be honest. Before we even start talking about the games, I hate Peacock games. I think Fox Sports is the second best when it comes to like the not companies, but the channel. I think CBS is the best. We don't need to talk about that though right now. Followed by Fox,
No.
And then I think ESPN probably is the worst. But let's talk about the games, and I don't want to get on a whole angry man yells at the clouds type of argument here.
We'll talk about college basketball's coverage in the offseason, but kicking it all off, like I mentioned, number 9 Butler versus number 8 Providence. Get your Peacock subscriptions ready from whoever you need to borrow it off of, because it's getting all underway at 4 p.m. Sully, who we got in that first opening matchup?
We're going to take Providence. And also, I just want to make it clear, we both have a trump card that we can use for this as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like we did in the last video. There is a trump card.
So we'll see if we use it for this. I have a feeling it's going to be kind of pretty straightforward.
Yeah, Providence in this one. I think that's the safe bet. We'll go Providence.
Yeah, I think we go
Butler.
Providence.
I mean, I don't want to disrespect Butler or anything, but they haven't done much of anything to inspire me this season. They took an L to North Dakota State in the early part of the season, so they're very primed for an upset. And, well, even here, it wouldn't really be an upset. They're the 9 seed. Not really much to be inspired by there, so we'll keep this one short and simple. Providence and Ed Cooley jumped ship there. The Providence is moving on. I'm too used to Ed Cooley being there after all those years. I forgot he's over at Georgetown now. Speaking of Ed Cooley, though, that leads perfectly into the next game. The 7 seed Georgetown going up against number 10 DePaul at 6:30 on Wednesday. Sully, you rocking with Ed Cooley here? What's the play?
You know who I'm rocking with? I'm rocking
You're gonna
with the
pick
Chicago
DePaul,
team.
aren't you?
I'm picking DePaul. Chris Holtman. They just beat Georgetown recently. Georgetown's without Sober. I've never been able to say this guy's name. I'm so sorry, but he was a beast when he was playing. But now he's out, so they've taken a huge hit. I'm gonna take DePaul though. They've been playing some good basketball compared to what we used to see every year from DePaul. I think there's a chance. There's a chance they could be back, which is not really anything special. I don't think they've made the tournament since the 90s, but I'm taking DePaul in this one. They just beat Georgetown like a couple days ago, and they're going to beat Georgetown in the Garden.
I'm not going to use a trump card here. I'll give you that one. DePaul moves on. I think I would pick Georgetown, but I'm going to keep the trump card up my sleeve just in case anything crazy happens, because I have a feeling when we get into the Dan Hurley storylines here, we may have to pull something out. You've got a little bit of a history with him. We'll keep it at that. But moving on, for the team that gets the right to play UConn the next day in the quarterfinals, Seton Hall, they've already took their swing at UConn. They won the first time around. Then we got Villanova as well, number 6 Villanova. Who we got moving on in this one? I'm going with Nova for myself.
Yeah, move on. That Seton Hall team sucks. Even though they beat UConn, which I don't know how they did it. Like that's got to be one of the worst losses in college basketball this year. Right?
Oh, 100%.
Because this Seton Hall team is a nightmare.
Yeah, a nightmare. That's putting it mildly there. Not been a good year for them. Do we think Shaheen Holloway might be in a little bit of trouble over there?
I mean, I think he's a great coach. I think his problem is they don't have like the NIL resources that other teams have.
Yeah,
and that's obviously killing them. We've seen what happened this year and last year. They lost Kadari Richmond, and now look who he's playing for.
Yep.
It's stud on St. John's.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue into the next one because Kadari Richmond and the number 1 seed St. John's will be kicking off the quarterfinals at noon on Thursday, going up against Providence in our little scenario here. I assume we're both riding with the Red Storm.
Yeah, we'll take the
Yeah.
Giant. Interesting. Pitino's playing Providence in the Garden. That'll be
Yeah.
a very interesting game to say the least.
Big time storylines, and they're there in the Big East. We'll keep it moving though. Marquette and Xavier. This is a very intriguing one. This is the first intriguing matchup. This is a tough one. You got Marquette, Cam Jones. Obviously, he's been lighting it up this year. But Marquette, they have not beat a ranked team. I believe it's been since January now. I think so. They're on a bit of a drought here of being able to pick up a quality win, and they've got a Xavier team that's been on the bubble for a little bit now, just lurking over there. What do we think about Xavier as we head into the Big East, Sully? This is a big spot for them. We would assume they need to make some noise to feel comfortable about getting into the big dance.
Yeah, so they're on the bubble right now, and they need to win this game to get in or have any form of a real chance of getting in, which that doesn't even make sense of what I just said. But Xavier needs to win this to get in. Basically the moral of the story. And to be honest, I'm taking Xavier. I don't like Marquette. I did say, hey, they might miss the tournament. They're not going to miss the tournament. But, man, they've really fallen off as the season has went through. They were looking like a top 3 seed. What are they now, like a 6 or 7?
Yeah, they've been at a 6 or 7 by most metrics.
Yeah, I think the desperate Xavier, they're on the bubble. They need this win. I'm going to take Xavier here.
You know, I've been mulling this one over as you've talked, but I think I'm going to agree with you. Xavier, they're desperate. They need to get this win for their bubble purposes. And Marquette, I mean, like we said, it's been a real downhill slope for them ever since about January. And I mean, the talent's there. Yeah.
Faith and Fremantle. That's going to be the new saying.
Yeah. There's a, I don't know. This is also just tricky because I feel like if Marquette gets hot, there's a scenario where they could make the final. I might be crazy there, but I could see this team having a legacy run that gets them into the final.
You're not crazy because craziness might happen in the semifinal is all I'll say.
Little tease for what we got coming up. But your upset pick, Sully, DePaul, number 10 seed, going up against Creighton in the quarterfinals in this scenario. I chose not to use my trump card there. What do we think? You think DePaul keeps on cruising through, or are they going to not be able to take down Creighton?
No, they can't take down Creighton. They got their one win in the Guard. That's probably their first win in 20 years in the Big East tournament. So they got that, but Creighton's a better team, as we know. They're going to win this basketball game.
Yeah, I'm riding with Creighton as well. I mean, simply put, all around, Creighton's a much better team, top to bottom. Not really a whole lot to talk about when it comes to that matchup, but this is an intriguing one. Quarterfinals, 9:30 p.m. in the Garden. Dan Hurley's UConn Huskies going up against Villanova. This one, this would be a very intriguing matchup, assuming Villanova gets past Seton Hall, which we expect they will. What do we think here, Sully, about Villanova going up against Dan Hurley?
There's a big storyline. The big storyline is this might be Kyle Neptune's last game. Yeah. Well, the Seton Hall might be the last game, but realistically, you should get past that. So I'm going to take Connecticut, and I think this is going to be a really close game. Really ugly close game is how I think it's going to be, and that's just going to be the moral of Kyle Neptune's story, where he loses a game like this, and it's over for him. Whereas, hey, Jay Wright's winning this game.
I mean, we've seen Nova get UConn before, so, I mean, it wouldn't be the biggest shock.
Okay, they got lucky, though. We had to say they got some of the most. Caravan ain't missing 2 free throws again.
Yeah, that's true. Those free throws, I forgot about that part of the game. I remember watching that now. Yeah, I'm not going to go for it. I think that Dan Hurley, he's going to be inspired going into this tournament. Whole college basketball world's been dunking on him, and now is the time for him to prove himself. I could see possibly a run into the final happening. I guess that'll lead into what we're about to talk about here with the semifinals. St. John's and Xavier to kick it all off on Friday in this scenario for the full court trap Big East bracket. Sully, I'm rolling with St. John's here. I think Xavier, they're going to get their one win against Marquette. That might help them out with the bubble, but it also might not be enough. I don't see them getting past Rick Pitino's squad.
I was thinking about taking Xavier. I'm not gonna lie. The more I pondered through it, this St. John's team is special. Like they're so good to watch. Their defense is elite. So I'm gonna take St. John's with you as well.
The only thing I worry about with St. John's as we head into postseason is just the fact that obviously we know how special they are defensively, but I
Can't
just
shoot.
worry, if they get caught on a bad night shooting, if that could spell the end for them. Like, let's say they go into this Xavier game. They're playing a team that's desperate, fighting for their life on the bubble. They have a bad shooting night. Xavier comes out inspired, ready to go. That could be the scenario that gets Xavier into the final. And when it comes to the NCAA tournament as well, I know that having a great defense can be the key to a big run. We've seen it with a team like Virginia when they won the national title. That brand of basketball they played really hard-nosed defensively, and they had just enough on the offense to get things done. But do you share that concern, Sully? Because heading into the postseason, that's the one thing I just don't like about St. John's, although I do think they still are a very, very good team.
No, they're a great team. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I do agree. That is a big concern. If there's a chance, there's definitely a chance they go into a game shooting like 1 of 24 from three, and they could play like an Alabama, for example, who yeah they're not good at defense, Alabama, but at times they can really shoot the piss out of the ball. You have Mark Sears, Aiden Holloway. They could really, really put damage on that St. John's team. And even though they have a great defense, I mean, shots sometimes fall in March. March is one of the best months we've seen. We've seen insane legacy runs, and there's a chance that defense they can't save them in a game when they're shooting 1 of 23 from three or 2 of 24.
There's also a thing too there though with Alabama. You mentioned being the example. There could be a scenario where their pace and their ability to get after it defensively that could be what propels them over the top of the likes of an Alabama. Where if they really disrupt the flow of what Alabama wants to do and what teams that are more offensive centric want to do, they could probably center a run around that. This is what I feel like is going to make them hard to judge as we head into the postseason.
Yeah. Also, this is more big picture past the Big East tournament. A St. John's, Michigan State matchup. How do you feel about that?
That would be a very good matchup. I really like Michigan. Sorry, what did you say? I'm derping for some reason.
St. John's as a 2 or 3 seed in this scenario, and then Michigan State as a 2 seed
Yeah, I don't
meeting
know
in the
what
Sweet
I was
16.
thinking. I was looking at the UConn Creighton matchup. I got confused, but yeah, Michigan State. That would be intriguing. In that hypothetical, I think I would go with the Spartans. The way that they're playing right now, it's hard to bet against them in anything because they just steamrolled Michigan today. It was
Yeah,
never a doubt. Now Michigan's had their problems, but when you go into the tournament and you've got a guy like Jace Richardson who can be a bucket getter, and then you've got the guys around him, the Aikens, Cohen Carr provides athleticism and a spark to that team overall. And then just the guys that play their role, like a Frankie Fiddler, it just I think that Michigan State's prime for a big run this postseason. I don't know about you, but if in that kind of matchup between those two, I think that I would take Michigan State.
I do think that'd be just a game of just an ugly style of basketball, but like fun to watch because
Mm-hmm.
both teams have absolute dogs. Trey Holloman, even getting off topic, Trey Holloman is a dog. What he did today, that represents Michigan State to like the fullest.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get back to the Big East.
Yeah, keeping it with the Big East here, but this is an intriguing one. I'm not sure if we're going to be on the same wavelength with this one, but Creighton UConn. Who do we have?
Oh man, I'm gonna take UConn. I think we need to set up the big
Mm-hmm.
final.
Yep, you read my mind. We are on the same page. After I thought your Dan Hurley agenda from early in the year would seep through, and you'd go with Creighton in this one. But I want to see UConn St. John's. I think it's going to happen. But what's the case for Creighton here in this game if they were to pull it off?
I think they need Kalkbrenner to have a big game, and I think Ashworth as well. He needs to have a big shooting game because
Mm-hmm.
they've been without Pop Isaacs for a while now. But I think Stephen Ashworth, if they want to beat UConn, I think he needs to have a very big game. And then I think on the other hand, I think the bigs for UConn, their big thing, keeping Kalkbrenner just as not a huge threat in this game and limit him to an extent.
Now this sets up the final that we all hope we get out of the Big East. St. John's versus UConn, Rick Pitino versus Dan Hurley. We saw what happened in the Garden a couple weeks ago when these teams met off. It was a St. John's masterclass. Rick Pitino got one under his belt against Dan Hurley. Now in the rematch, all the marbles on the line. Dan Hurley, we know what he's done the last 2 years in the Big East. Who do we think comes out on top in this situation, Sully? Who is the Full Court Traps Big East champion?
Our Full Court Trap Big East champion. It's UConn.
We're on the same page again. I got them too.
Dan Hurley is not losing 3 games to Rick Pitino. You know this man right now, and I've been negative Dan Hurley this year, and nobody can lie. I can't lie. But you know Dan Hurley is just sitting in his office right now at whatever time it is in Storrs, Connecticut, saying we need number 1, winning the Big East tournament. Number 2, we're seeing St. John's, and I'm kicking Rick Pitino's ass in this game. No way around it. That right now he's in his office right now, like just completely just foaming at
he's
the
locked
mouth
in.
about possibly seeing Rick Pitino, because those two do not like each other at all. That's kind of been out there for a while now, and he's lost to him twice this year. You know that's in his mind. Dan Hurley's ego is insane, calling somebody a bald. He's locked in. Like he wants this matchup bad. That's all I can say.
Yeah, he's definitely going to want this one bad, especially with the run of dominance they've had the last few years. I feel like he's had the underwhelming year, and this is his chance to come out and make a statement that he's still here. This is still his conference, and he's heading into the tournament riding high. But, I mean, what's the scenario here where Rick Pitino gets the clean sweep over UConn? I don't think it's going to happen. I'm surprised we're on the same page. I thought you were going to go the other way with St. John's, but focusing on St. John's for a second, I mean, what do we think's going to have to happen for them to be able to dethrone Dan Hurley?
I mean, they just got to play a tenacious defense that we've seen all season. That's, the big thing. And they need to be able to shoot the ball well as well. Because I'm expecting, this is the third matchup, the hypothetical third matchup. Solo ball, he's going to shoot the piss out of the ball. Caravan, he wants this matchup again, too. He's never lost 2 games to an opponent in the Big East. Don't fact check me there, but I'm almost positive he's never been swept by a team in the Big East.
I think you're correct on that one.
We'll have to look into that, but
I'm trying to look for bracketology right now to see where UConn's sitting at, if where it would propel. Okay, Lenardi has UConn as an 8 seed right now where things stand. Now, if UConn goes through this thing and runs the table, where do we think they land?
Oh, man. Creighton's a big win, and St. John's obviously a big win. But the big question here is, does the committee really factor in the tournament?
That's been the reoccurring question. Yeah,
I would say 6 seed probably is where I'd get him. And honestly, that'd be, if you're one of those 1 seeds right now, I'd be so happy to not have to see UConn, because could you Duke UConn is a round of 32 game. Let's just say UConn doesn't win for hypothetical purposes. UConn loses to Creighton or St. John's. And if you're Shire, are you a little nervous seeing this UConn team?
Oh, anybody's got to be nervous seeing the back-to-back champions. I mean, this team's been disappointing, obviously, but you still got to be pretty jacked up to see this team in your bracket staring you down the face if you're a 1 seed.
Even with the team Duke has. And now we're just using Duke as an example because they're the most talented team in college basketball. I don't think that should really be Cooper Flagg, Malawach, Knipple, Proctor. All those guys are beasts. But, I think they'd be – Cooper Flagg, I think, would be living to see for that matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Me personally, I think he takes this personally. And so do his parents. His parents were going nuts in that UNC game recently.
Yeah, but the head tap.
I don't know. I think UConn. I think a lot of these 1 seeds want UConn to win this. Is what I'll say.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, if you're a 1 seed looking at a possible Dan Hurley with the back-to-back champs, I mean, like I said, this team hasn't lived up to the expectations, but still, he's going to be hungry, and he's going to have, he's going to have his team ready to go when the tournament comes, because that guy is just bred to win, and win.
100%.
Yeah. I like this setup, Sully. I think that we might be pretty accurate in this one. In those earlier rounds, the only one I think we may not be on about is the DePaul Georgetown, but that was really our one disagreement. We're par for the course the rest of the way.
I do have a weird gut feeling though that Xavier upset St. John's, and that gets them in the tournament. That's my big question mark. I think is Xavier throughout this tournament, because they can be a huge foil to Marquette, St. John's chances at a 2 seed, and then possibly UConn if Xavier goes that far, or Creighton.
Yeah. When you look at the storylines as far as that goes, I think we have the number one storyline here with UConn taking this whole thing, but the one that would be right there next to it, I think, would be Xavier having a run to the final that gets them in. Besides St. John's and UConn, do we think that Creighton has a puncher's chance at taking this conference? I don't really see the vision. I know they're sitting there number 2, second place in the conference, but there's just not a whole lot about this team that really inspires me. They've been really inconsistent throughout the year as well.
I think they definitely have a chance. I don't think they're going to, though, personally. I just think what our projected final is destiny, is all I'll say. I just think both coaches, both Pitino, both Hurley, they both have huge egos. They both want to see each other again, even though Pitino's already beaten him twice this year. I think this game is made to happen Saturday, the 15th.
It feels like one of those matchups that's written in the stars, and I'll definitely be wanting to see it. I don't know about these Peacock matchups if I'm really going to be tuned. The only one I might tune into is this one, as far as the Peacock battles go. I mean, depending on what's on Wednesday. Though? Yeah, I thought Peacock was a Big Ten thing.
Yeah,
I could have swore Peacock was Big Ten only. But
oh yeah, does Peacock have Big Ten too?
They might.
Yes, hopefully. Oh no.
They might. We'll find that out when we do our preview of the Big Ten bracket. I want to say they do though, because I've seen a lot of Big Ten games on Peacock this year. But
I don't know. It sucks.
We're going off the rails here, but yeah, as far as the Big East tournament goes, UConn is your champion, provided to you by the Full Court Trap podcast. This would be the scenario that lights the college basketball world on fire. I'm sure Dan Hurley would have quite a bit to say to everybody.
Oh, that post-game press conference would be a nightmare. For
must see television in the post game if Dan Hurley comes out on top with this one. But yeah, this all starts on Wednesday through Saturday at the Mecca of basketball, Madison Square Garden. But we'll be tuned into this one for sure. That's the Full Court Trap Pod's Big East bracket. We'll see how correct we are on all this.